Hundreds of teams had been battling through regular season play for the state title. Some teams are just hoping to win at their local level, like a group of boys in the southwestern corner of Minnesota.
I grew up in Edgerton, Minnesota. I think population of about 1,000. It was a Dutch town. Almost at that time, I'd say 95% of the people were of Dutch descent. Very nice place to grow up. I look back at really good feelings about growing up in Edgerton.
Edgerton had a long tradition of basketball, but also a long tradition of futility in the district title game.
Unfortunately, my junior year, we lost by 1 point in the district finals to Jasper. Heartbreaking, very painful. I think I cried for 3 days after that game, and we went home very sad again. And the people of Edgerton were very sad because they were just wanting a district championship so badly. I think we were determined to do better the next year.
The Flying Dutchmen did do better during the 59-60 season. They began to pile up wins with a good mix of talented underclassmen and senior experience.
Well, our center was a junior, Dean Vainoff. Very, very good player. Left-hander, leading scorer. Daryl Kroon was also a junior, 5'8" guard. Still as deadly a shooter as I've ever known. Leroy Graffentine, another junior, 5'8" guard. Toughest guy to play against that you would ever find. He always guarded the toughest guard on their team, and they all hated him, at least to play against him. Bob Wiarda and I were the two senior starters. Darrell Stevens was our sixth man, another very good athlete, really good guy.
The team also had a new coach.
Yeah, Richie Olson came to town. Richie came with a lot of excitement and fire. I always say that the town was never the same after Richie came to town.
The focus, finesse, toughness, and team play of the Flying Dutchmen led them to an unbeaten season. Edgerton went on to their first district title. Then they pulled off a few more upsets to win the region, earning one of the Elite 8 spots in the state basketball tournament played in Minneapolis.
It was played at Williams Arena, and it was one class, 8 teams coming from around the state.
We have 4 classes now, and so, there's a qualification there. You're the best in 4A, you're the best in 3A. And so I love the thought that some schools are bigger, some are small, but everyone has that same opportunity to be state champions.
The afternoon of their first game, the Flying Dutchmen headed to their shoot-around at Williams Arena.
So walking into this arena, especially when it's empty, was just such an experience. All of us are looking at each other, and we're just kind of wondering, are we really here? It was a really different feeling.
That night, they returned to a jam-packed arena to take on a tough team from the Iron Range, the Chisholm Blue Streaks. The game was hard-fought, but Edgerton held on for the upset. The Edgerton win against Chisholm set up a game with the top-ranked Richfield Spartans.
Everybody was talking about, of course, David and Goliath, Richfield and Edgerton. We were huge underdogs. Richfield really did have a really good team.
I was aware of it. It was a big deal.
So having played in the barn myself, I simply can't imagine what it must have been like for those high school kids playing on that court. It sounded like it was like no other event I can imagine, really. To see pictures with, 19,000 fans.
Fans were absolutely berserk. That was almost mind-boggling. It's hard to imagine when you think of 19,000 people in this arena, because I think now it only holds about 13,500, maybe 14,000.
All accounts describe the game as perhaps the most intense and exciting game in state tourney history, as the Dutchmen struggled to contain the Richfield superstar.
Bill Davis was a horse. He was the best guy we played against all year. Very determined.
The tight game went into overtime.
After we had gotten that far, you just don't get a chance like that very often in life.
Bill Davis and Richfield got to within a basket, and in the final seconds, Edgerton found themselves at the free throw line.
No team could foul us because we made free throws just like mad.
Leroy Graffentine's free throw sealed the historic upset.
Edgerton beat Richfield. I don't know if we could have done it a second time, but we did it when we had to.
So David beat Goliath, but there was another giant waiting for the underdogs, the powerful Austin Packers. This time, the confident and now battle-worn Flying Dutchmen controlled the game from the tip-off. And the seniors were able to go to the bench and take in the win.
We did it. We not only won a district tournament, we won a region tournament, and now we won a state tournament.
No, this must be the greatest thing ever happened to you.
Greatest thing that happened to me, yeah. It's a great bunch of guys did it.
It was really a lot of emotions.
The teens were anxious to get home, but not wanting to disrupt the holy day for their very observant community, they stayed in the Twin Cities that Sunday and took in the town.
Sunday morning, we went out to Bloomington, and the whole team went to church. We stopped and visited a young man in an iron lung who was a big Edgerton fan, and we had a chance to say hello to him. I remember we had a dinner together. We just kind of made Sunday a nice day here, and got up Monday and headed for Edgerton. We were going home and going through towns. There were people out in the street. They wanted us to stop, and they were clapping and cheering. And we finally got home, and about a mile out of town, the fire truck picked us up. They had done a lot of things in Edgerton to help us celebrate. They had butchered a steer on Main Street that day. There was 3 or 4 bands from various other towns who marched in ahead of us, and it was not a Edgerton celebration, but an area celebration. I think everybody was enjoying the day with us.
You are no longer a Norwegian. You are now a Dutchman. You are a Flying Dutchman.
Sports has the ability to bring a community together. And so I think with that Edgerton team, they represented all of that. A small group of kids coming together as a community. There is a sense in sports now that there has to be so much money and you have to come from a big school. And Edgerton showed that no matter what socioeconomic class you're coming out of, no matter your racial divide, they kind of represented everything that is good about sports.
No one in my family had ever gone to college. Most kids in Edgerton didn't go to college. There were 2 of us out of a class of 34 who ended up going to McAllister College because of Richie Olson. McAllister was great. I went there, played basketball for 4 years. I majored in mathematics. I was a math teacher for most of my career, coached basketball. I assumed the position of athletic director and assistant principal at Henry Sibley High School and finished my career there. I spent most of my career there also coaching basketball and teaching math.
In 2018, the Minnesota High School Basketball Hall of Fame began. And in the inaugural class, the team of Edgerton went in as a team. I believe all of the living players from that team and the widow of Richie Olson, the coach, were there.
I think it's really important we keep sports in perspective, because there's so many other things in life that are also extremely important. But if you think about what you learn when you participate in athletics, I think back to our team, how close we were. I mean, that's the kind of thing I always tried to work with the students that I coached. The team is so important, and how you treat each other is so important, and there's so much to be learned from it if we do it in a positive way.